So this morning, I will start by reading a powerful passage. Then I'm going to read another powerful passage that says the same thing in a different way. Then I'm going to tell you a story that says the same thing in a completely different way. Three different things, all saying the same fundamental, critically important, life-transforming spiritual truth. In fact, they are all teaching us the single most important spiritual practice that there is to get. Because when we get this principle, we're going to talk about this morning, when we get it, we really get it, we embody it, and we live from it. It is the ultimate leap off the fence to the side of yes. Say yes to it. It is a definitive line in the sand that allows us to walk through our lives fearlessly. So today really is a continuation of the past 2 Sundays, where we talked about what would I do if I knew I could not fail? Part 1 and part 2. So this is the continuation of it. The first reading is from religious science founder Ernest Holmes. And what I'm about to read, Holmes really believed in it. How do I know he believed in it? Because he put this one word in caps, which he never does in his book. He put it all in caps. So I'm going to try to convey what Ernest Holmes is speaking of when he says, there is one mind by which we think, one spirit by which we live, one body we are a part of, and one light that lights everyone's pathway. One spirit, one mind, one substance, one God, in whom we all live, one law, just one law, which we all use. One, that's the caps for emphasis. One. The infinite must be one, for there could not be two. Can't be two infinite beings, one infinite being. Whatever change, this is all Ernest Holmes, whatever change takes place must take place within this one, this all-encompassing oneness of life. Everything is within it. And he makes this point over and over, like only Ernest Holmes could do. He repeats a lot in his book, but he wants us to get it on a deep level. That's why he repeats. So, unless we forget that there is none other but the one, and it is in this oneness, this infinite nature of the divine, that we put our complete faith, complete, not 70%, not 80%, must be 100% faith in it. Unless we do that, we are sitting on a fence. We have not committed fully. It's all in or not in at all. We need to be either in or out. Do we believe it or not? That's the question we ask ourselves. How far do we believe it? How deep do we believe it? Must be 100%. Because when we do 100%, then life takes on a whole new meaning. When we live our life from this concept we're going to get into, it takes on a whole new meaning, changes everything. So let's explore just a little bit deeper by going back a couple of thousand years ago to the Tao Te Ching. Because it is saying the same exact thing and then expands what it means to us. The Tao Te Ching is the entire Taoist philosophy of life in 81 verses. It took Holmes 800 pages, 600 pages, over 600 pages to say the same thing. The Tao Te Ching says it in 81 verses, and some of them are only one sentence long. The world is nothing. This is a quote from the Tao. The world is nothing but the glory of the Tao, which means source, infinite way, divine principle. So, the world is nothing but the glory of the Tao expressed through different names and forms. One who sees the things of this world as being real and self-existent has lost the sight of truth. To him, every word becomes a trap, and everything becomes a prison. But the one who knows the truth that underlies all things lives in this world without danger. To him, every word reflects the universe, and every moment brings enlightenment. The individual who knows the truth, the perfect one divine truth that underlines all things, that lives in this world without danger. And what is that truth which underlies all things? There is only one. There is only the glory of the Tao, which I said is the source, the oneness. Nothing but the glory of God through different names and different forms. One spirit, one mind, one substance, one life, one God. And it all makes the difference. It makes all the difference in the world. One power. One power. Not conceptually, but understand that there really, really is this oneness of life. We can do something really radical when we realize this. We can walk through life, and no matter what befalls us, our understanding is deeper. And we know who the giver is. It's not the circumstances. The giver is way beyond circumstances. And if we understand who the giver is, we can stay. We can stay open. That's the important part. When it comes, we can stay open to when it comes. And that is a reality that is vastly different from what we were taught growing up. No one said this growing up. Read the books. I would read books when I was in teens, and nobody knew what I was talking about. Ernest Holmes knew. The Tao knew. The truth knows, because the truth is always present. It has never been absent. Here's a quote. Well, I'm going to talk about, first of all, because I have also a story here. I have a couple of stories within the one story. But people would tell us that the conditions are the real thing. They would tell us otherwise than this oneness. They would think, a lot of people, not all people, they would think you're a little out of your mind, because this is really happening. We hear a million stories. They're all happening. But here's one of them. And this comes from someone I absolutely love, Reverend August Gold. She's not been around lately, but she used to speak in Manhattan a lot. But she was at one of our conferences, and she told this story. It's the story of a woman who lived in downtown New York City on the Lower East Side. One night, just an ordinary night, she walked into the vestibule of her apartment, pulled out her key, and if you know, you got the little mail slot, opened up her mail, flipped the box open. All of a sudden, a big, burly stranger crashes through those doors and grabs her and hurls her to the ground in a corner. We read stories like this every day when we pick up the paper or listen to the news. Something bad, something totally unexpected and unwanted comes crashing through the door. Nobody wants something like this to happen to them, and we certainly do not wish it on anyone. There she was, on the ground, crouching in fear. And who would not be? There isn't anyone in this room, including myself, that might not be a little afraid there or terrified. And then we sit in rooms like this and we say we believe that there is only one. How would we respond in these moments when we're crashed and crouching and we're crashed to the ground? It is in that moment that we get to decide what one really means. Not when we're sitting just, this is all good to hear because we want to remember it. And it feels good. But it's in the situations of life. That's when we want to remember there is only one power, one presence, one absolute perfection. And that is within me right here and right now. We want to remember that in these kinds of situations. Because we never know when the moment like this will happen. We don't know. Now, it may not be exactly like that moment. We may not get shoved to the ground in a corner by a big, scary, burly stranger. But life comes at us. Life comes at us suddenly, without warning. And we can definitely get shoved a little. As August Gold was telling the story, she said this, and when it comes at us like this, we have to know who came calling, whose hand is pushing us, whose hand is knocking on the door. If we don't know, we will never ever have peace of mind that will allow us to open the door with any kind of certainty. Knowing that what is knocking on our door has our name on it. It knows us by heart, she said, and is calling specifically to us. Whose hands pushed her down? That's a radical question. This is all radical to ask, but we're humans. We're all here together to hear this. But if there is only one power and one presence, if God is and I am, if everything is nothing, as the Tao says, but the glory of the Tao, if everything we see, if everything that exists is this one power and this one presence that we already are, then the very hand that seems to be pushing us down is our own hand. It is our hand that's doing the pushing. Now, who wants to think? Who wants to think that somebody would bring such a thing upon themselves? But here it is. Here it is, where the teaching can transform our lives. We look with our human eyes, and we see her on the ground. We see ourselves after being let go from a job or in a doctor's office, getting a diagnosis, dealing with something we cannot believe that we have to deal with, all from our limited perspective. If we do not understand what one really means, then we look with our human eyes and we say, oh my God, look what just happened to me. Isn't it awful? And everybody will agree, yes, it's so awful. It's terrible. But if there is only one power and there's only one presence and you are it and it is you, if everything is nothing but the glory of the Tao, then what is all this that is taking place? If we don't know that all of life moves toward us for our growth, we will think that life is happening to us. And really, really, we know, some of us know, and some of us believe in all these different situations that truly life is happening for us. When we move into that knowing that life is happening for us, everything changes. Everything changes. We are being grown and cultivated and nourished and sustained. And every single thing, without exception, not the exception of being pushed down by this man in the foyer, not the exception of my having to deal with a diagnosis that is so rare that the medical community doesn't know how to deal with it, not the exception of my having so many family members in addiction in my life, none of that. Nothing is left out of the idea that all of life is a movement to our own wholeness. Life is happening for me to learn, for me to be open. Everything that comes to us, everything that happens to us, everything, bar none, isn't happening to us, it's happening for us. If we believe in a oneness, nothing is left out, right? It's all part of the infinite oneness. She is crouching in the vestibule. It's every person's worst nightmare. And something hits her. And that is why we study, this is why we read, this is why we take classes, this is why we are sitting here today. This is why we do it, for this moment. This moment when we are crouching on the ground in the middle of an experience we don't yet understand, but we know it is for us. 100%, gotta believe it 100%. And she said to herself, you know, I have spent my whole life crouching, everything that's ever happened to me, I've taken this pose. In every relationship, in every job I've had, with family, with friends, I've always defended myself and crouching in fear. Today is the last day I crouch. That's it. She got up. She stands up, literally, she's standing up in her truth. If she stood up based on the truth that there is one power, that there is one presence, that there is just one here, all caps come into play. All caps come into play. There is just one. And in these moments, you have to know it. This is when you need to know it. You can't know it 80%. You can't know it 90%. You must know this 100%. Because if you don't stand up 100% faith in the oneness of God, the only way we can stand up to fear is with that 100% belief that there is only one and this is happening for me, whatever it is. Big concept, big concept. The only way we can do this is to pick a side. We've got to get off the fence and pick that side. And she did. Having picked one, she stood up for the first time ever in her life. In a situation that was probably the craziest situation for her to stand up in. Because what most people would tell you is, stay down, kick your purse, throw your purse over, and hope he runs away. She stood up. She was so certain of what this meant for her that she turned right to this Goliath-sized fear and did something preposterously counterintuitive. She went charging toward him. And she couldn't believe what was happening. So he turned around and he took off out of the building. And she went running down the street after him. She was absolutely crazy because she was living in a world without danger, you see. The instant she understood that her own fingerprints and the fingerprints of spirit itself were there in this situation, and something wasn't happening to her. Something was happening for her. She had the strength, the power to get up. I remember one day in Philadelphia, this brought the story up for me. I was with my family walking down in the Civic Hill section towards South Street, you know, a really nice, beautiful section of Philadelphia. And I'm a long time, at that point I was actually teaching martial artists long term. I train people in self-defense. So I know what you're supposed to do and not to do at that time. So I see the people in front of me, now my family's here, getting mugged at gunpoint. Okay? Counterintuitive. What do? I yell and I start chasing them. I just chasing people with a gun. Chase them around the corner, and they must have turned down somewhere, an alleyway or somewhere. And everything in me, it went against what I was teaching, because the one thing you don't do is chase somebody with a gun. You don't do that, please. Never do that. I was standing in my truth, but it was just a reaction. My family didn't speak to me for a week. They refused to talk to me. We went out to dinner. They didn't even talk to me at dinner. Nobody could even speak. But it went with that story. I was like, well, I forgot about it. Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, says, the path is about following God all the way home. And we think, what a pretty good concept. I like those words. So sweet. So pretty. Let's follow God all the way home. What this really means, though, is following God all the way home means standing up in the middle of a real live metaphor. She takes the experience, this is our girl, she takes this experience and it becomes a stepping stone for her. This makes her more courageous in life than she's ever been. This makes her a woman that she has never known herself to be. She stood up in the middle of fear and she chased that fear right out, right away. She knew she was not in danger because the one was right there within her, guiding her. She takes this and parlays it into a whole new life. What does enlightenment mean? It means every single thing that happens to us, we understand as the one power. We understand it's for us. The one power, the one presence. The one infinite being is always there with us in every situation. We have to remember that when these situations feel like they're crashing upon us, we have to remember that we are not alone. We are never alone. This is the answer to our prayers for everything. To grow into people we were born to be. We long to be, we pray to be. We pray to be powerful, courageous beings moving through life, knowing that life is supporting us. 100% belief. And maybe being the person we were always afraid to be. You got to love this path. It's very bold. It really is bold. You're either in or you're out. It is transforming, though, when you enter into these teachings and understand what the great teachers of our lives and the lives before us have all come to tell us. They tell us this one truth, truly, that all life is a movement toward our wholeness, our completeness, our perfection, divine perfection, and our greatness, and our own strength shines through. And that, my friends, is what it really means to be one, what one is about. we hear this oneness and new thought a lot, but are we remembering it in our everyday lives? Are we using this when stuff doesn't go like we planned it should go? Most stuff doesn't. The one thing that we can always depend upon, though, is that power within us will guide us, will protect us, will keep us safe no matter what. So it is.